Hi guys, PJ here, taking a look at the PC release of Hogwarts Legacy. This is the Steam version of the game, and I wanted to wait until I'd got, well, a little bit out in the world and see how it actually ran, once you left the actual castle, so hence I'm a few days late with this one. Okay, questions first. Does it prepare the shaders? Well, yes it does, and this is roughly how long it takes on a GTX 1660 Ti coupled with a Ryzen 2700. Now, the main bulk of this testing is actually going to be on an RTX 2060 because it does really benefit from DLSS, but I'm going to quickly briefly show you how it's sort of running on a GTX 1660 Ti. But before we do that, let's have a look at all the options and settings that the game has to offer, what tweakability it's got and what accessibility options the game's got. Looking over the settings and options menu, we've got pretty good configuration on this particular game. So under display, we've got windowed full screen and we've got windowed, of course, depending which monitor you're using and what resolution it supports. Now, I am actually going to be testing this on a 1080p screen rather than this 1440p screen, and the reason is this particular section that I've recorded here is done on a 1660 Ti with a Ryzen 2700. And it pretty much plays the game at medium on a locked 30. I'll show you the actual settings it uses in a sec, because obviously you cannot use DLSS. So we've got AMD FSR2, Intel XeSS, AMD FSR 1.0 and NVIDIA NIS. We do not have DLSS, so hence the bulk of this video is on the RTX card. Okay, going down here, you've got your sharpness, low latency, VSync on and off, etc. And you've got your frame rate limit. Yeah, you're going to see some really beefy equipment to get it right up here, guys, I assure you. And the game is, well, a bit buggy, as we will see. But we've got chromatic abbreviation, we've got film grain, which is all these speckles. You can turn that off, keep that off. And we've got our graphic options. Now, all of these are low, medium, high, ultra. Okay, this is the default, what the game has set this graphics card to. I bumped up textures one notch to high because it did look a little bit muddy. But other than that, this is pretty much what it's set, a 1660 Ti2. Now, funnily enough, the game does set an RTX 2060 to medium as well, which didn't work out. So we'll have a look at that a bit later on. But anyway, you do have a benchmarking tool on here, and there's your RT stuff on and off. Okay, moving on. Sound. You've got your music, you've got your sound effects, etc, etc, but you've also got audio configuration. You've got home cinema, headphones, night bar, soundbar and TV, so that's pretty good. And yes, it's 5.1 surround sound. Very good. It does sound rather nice. Controller support. Yes, it supports PlayStation 5 controller, Xbox Series controller, Xbox One controller, same sort of thing. Mouse, keyboard input, not a problem there. It does, or doesn't for me, support all of the DualSense PS5 controller features. So for me, it was just vibration. I couldn't seem to get the other bits and bobs working even with it plugged in, so a bit strange. Obviously, we've got a difficulty here. You can change that to how you wish, and all your sensitivities and aims, etc. There's your controller layout, pretty easy to be honest with you, very straightforward. Mouse, keyboard bindings as well, awful lot of them. Do you find the cursor a bit strange with this big circle that it's got going on around the edge of it, but I suppose it's in keeping. And here's your accessibility options. Now, there's quite a lot here. It's quite in depth. You've got a lot of stuff. You've got left-handed on and off. You've got audio visualizer icon keys, audio visualizers, etc, etc, text sizes, high contrast. So they've done a pretty good job of that overall. And obviously down at the bottom is your network settings. Now, I'm testing the Steam version of this game, which does have the wonderful de novo protection. So in other words, it does slow the game down considerably. Let's move on to the RTX 2060 test, because like I say, this, well, it's not bad, but it would run better with DLSS.
Hi, would you care to give our new student a bit of a challenge? Come on up. You'll be the blues just as before, and Miss Onai, you are playing red. Clear?
Yes, sir.
This is the RTX2060 coupled with an Intel i7 9th gen CPU, in fact 6-core 12-thread one. 16GB of DDR4, game is installed on a SSD, an M2, and it's recording to another M2 SSD. 1080p. Now the sharp-eyed among you may have noticed some graphical glitches when this section first started. Oh yeah, we'll touch on that a lot more very shortly. This one though is one of the mini games in the actual game. You come out of the castle and it's like a training exercise, etc. Nothing too taxing, but as you can see, it looks very nice overall. Let's cut to the settings and have a quick look at what it's running at right now. Originally, I was going to recommend these as the recommended settings for somebody with a similar spec system. You'll notice mostly mediums and highs. You've got one low there on shadow quality, ray tracing on for reflections. It does look very nice inside the castle. But a bit further on in the game, when you get to this bit, yeah, there's one hell of a problem, guys, and it took quite a lot of tweaking for me to figure out what was causing this, well, pretty severe problem. It's a bit distracting, let's face it. It's absolutely everywhere. It's not just this section. You can go outside, you can visit a town, and you will come across this problem. And unfortunately for me, this was tied to ray tracing. It was basically turn ray tracing off, restart the game, and well, I'm sure you can see for yourself, it's completely fixed the problem. So there is some sort of bug or problem with it that still needs patching. I mean, the game is janky, guys. I mean, the frame rate is up and down all over the place. The GPU load 60-70% in this particular area. RAM, yep, we're under the 16 gigabytes. The CPU's not struggling. It's nicely spread across the cores. None of them are hitting 100. So, you know, what's going on? It does actually get worse when you go outside into one of the towns. It sort of frame rate really drops, takes a big hit. So you do actually end up tweaking these settings quite a lot, as you will see. In fact, it's not until you reach the town of Hogsmeade, which is, you know, quite a chunk into the game. You've got to do all the tutorials and get out of the castle before you can actually run around and have some freedom, that things really start to go pear-shaped. And when I say pear-shaped, I mean the FPS is all over the shop. This game really does benefit from sticking VSync on, sticking your FPS at basically what it's stable at. Now in the end, I ended up preferring a higher quality with DLSS quality on and a locked 30 frames per second. Yeah, I know it would have been nice to have 60 frames per second, but it was just too variable. So even with the 60 frames per second, the GPU would be 70-80% in this area. It wouldn't be maxed, but it was still struggling, juddering, you know, not really working it. Now the game is installed on an M2 NVMe Gen 3, pretty fast one actually, and I'm recording to a Samsung SSD. Windows 10 is on another SSD, so there shouldn't be any slowdown or, you know, very minimal slowdowns using this recording software, which is accidentally the NVIDIA recording software. But the game needs, I don't know, its frame pacing is all over the place. It's just not smooth. So to get the best possible playable experience, I recommend you make it look nice and drop the frame rate to 30 rather than trying to keep it at 60 or above. I mean, it's not a fast response high action game anyway. You know, it's suitable to play in at 30, no problem. And let's face it, playing this game, it's in character. It does make you feel like you're in the actual movies. You know, I'm not a fan of the Harry Potter universe myself. I've never watched any of the films, but this really pulls you into the whole wizardry type thing. So in my opinion, get your graphics to look as best they possibly can and sort of enjoy the game for what it is, a large open world RPG. Now unfortunately on this particular system, and probably on yours as well with similar spec, that's going to mean without ray tracing due to that pretty serious bug. Tried it on and off as I progressed through the game for the first few hours of the game, and basically it just kept coming back as soon as I switched it on. All your trees, all your foliage, you know, they were all messed up, and you know, it's quite a big bug. It's very distracting. You certainly can't play it in that sort of situation. So ray tracing off and sort of pop everything up reasonably high. It would have been nice to have had a GPU memory bar on this, showing you how much of your GPU you use in turning stuff on and off, because unfortunately the memory readout, as you can see, is corrupted. It says 220 megabytes, while no, most certainly not. It's not using 220. But no matter which software I tried to monitor the GPU memory usage, it didn't seem to get it right. It was fooling it. So there's something amiss there as well. Great looking game. I will say this though, it's not as smooth as its console counterpart if you're using a controller. Okay, now hear me out on this one. Locking it at 30, turning the graphics so they look nice, so it's not overtaxed, no ray tracing. Even though it was sticking at 30 FPS, it still didn't feel fluidly, wonderfully smooth. Now I've got this on PlayStation 5 and that feels really smooth. Doesn't matter which game mode you stick it in, it's lovely, it's fluid and smooth. So there's something amiss, and PC folks, we're going to need a patch. We're going to need them to fix some of this for it to be, you know, a nice sublime type environment for people on 1660 Ti's and 2060s, 3050s, etc. Maybe if you're on a higher card, you know, maybe a 3070 or something or upwards, then you'd get a smoother experience. But I will say this, I do have somebody that's run this on a 4070 Ti, and that's with a 5900X, and it was absolutely terrible at 1440p. Frame rate was up, down, left and right, all over the place. So there is a problem. To wrap up, in short, a brilliant looking game, fantastic atmosphere, beautiful graphics to look at. Some of the interiors are amazing with ray tracing on. Really does wrap you up in the movie feel. Unfortunately plagued by bugs, stutters, uneven frame rates, judders, graphical artifacting problems and other bits and bobs. I will say I've not actually had any crashes though, so there's a bonus. But at the moment my recommendation is wait for bug fixes and stutter fixes. You don't need to necessarily wait for a sale on this game. It is a very good game, very high quality by the look of it. It just needs all the problems fixing. So at the moment, hold off, wait to buy it until it's fixed. Guys, I hope this was helpful for somebody out there. Thanks a lot for watching and bye for now.